Warning, in this episode I will be talking about depression, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, and a near suicide attempt. Hi, I'm a little loopy and this is my final episode for Lupus Awareness Month. You might be wondering why I'm talking about this particular subject, specifically in relation to lupus. Well, the problem is, depression can be a side effect of lupus. It's not just living with a chronic and ever-present illness, it's how the disease itself can affect the brain. Also, it's just a really important topic to talk about in general, because it's something that can affect anyone. So, what is depression exactly? You might think, oh, it's just someone feeling really sad all the time, but that's not it. I didn't realise how hard it was to describe depression to someone who's never experienced it before recently. One of my many cousins was talking to me at a party and she asked what depression was like because she just didn't get it. She didn't understand what it was that people go through depression feel. For me, it was equally confusing. For me, depression is normal. It's something that's always present. For me, feeling normal is weird. The best way I could think to describe it to her is, you know when you just get off of work and you're really tired and you just can't be bothered with people or doing anything and you just feel kind of fed up and angry but numb at the same time? But then it goes away after 5 minutes and you go and make tea or something. Well, depression is like feeling those 5 minutes all the time. It's not exactly known what causes depression. We know that the chemicals in your brain change with depression. Researchers are looking at how the chemicals in your brain interact with each other and the different levels that can occur with them, and studying how that affects depression, which could help us pinpoint a cause and lead to more effective treatments. Hormones can also cause or trigger depression. This is why postpartum depression relating to giving birth, is a thing. Your thyroid gland, a gland in your neck that produces hormones, can also affect depression. That's one of the problems I have to deal with. I have an underactive thyroid, but I take medication that helps to keep my hormone levels balanced. You can tell when I'm not taking that medication because I'm a lot more irritable and little things tend to make me very frustrated and upset. Depression can also have a genetic cause because it's become apparent that depression runs in families, and researchers are looking into what genes may be involved in causing the condition. Depression doesn't just mean that you get really sad for a while. You could get really angry and frustrated, even over really small things that seem stupid. You could just feel empty or numb, losing interest in things that you used to love doing. Your appetite might also be affected. You might want to eat too much or not want to eat anything at all. A typical portrayal of depression is wanting to sleep all the time, but it can also cause insomnia. It can make you think you're worthless, or that no one loves you or cares about you at all. Your depression tells you that you're alone, and that even if people want to help, that you're somehow not worthy of that help. On the extreme end, people going through depressive episodes may self-harm or experience thoughts of suicide. If you recognise any of these symptoms in yourself or in someone you know, please reach out. It might feel that there's nothing anyone can do, or that the way you feel will last forever, but I promise you that that's not the case. There are effective treatments out there. Talk therapy, medication, they really can help. It can be very hard to admit that there's something wrong or that you need help. I know, trust me. But there's absolutely no shame in asking for help or admitting that you have depression. To prove that I know what I'm talking about, I'm going to tell you about my personal battle with depression. For me, depression has always been present in my life. One of my close family members fought with it on a daily basis, but we never talked about it. It was just this big, nameless thing that loomed over my whole childhood that was never acknowledged. It was closed doors and not talking to someone for a week at a time and feeling like it was your fault for doing or saying something wrong and setting them off. For me, personally, my first experience with depression was around the age of 14 or 15. Nothing in my life was in control. Aside from normal teenage problems, hormones and school and stuff, this was around the time our family situation took a big change as well. It was at this time I began to self-harm. I had no idea what I was feeling most of the time. It was so jumbled up and confusing, and I just wanted to feel something that I understood and could control. There seems to be this misconception that people self-harm for attention, and when it's portrayed in the media, people always seem to self-harm on their arms. I never did. I rolled up my sleeves and wore t-shirts a lot, so I tended to cut on my knees or my shoulders or my hips, somewhere I always covered up. This period of depression didn't last too long. I started to take my thyroid medication regularly and things kind of settled down in my home life. I stopped self-harming and tried to put that period of my life behind me. Looking back, I probably struggled on and off with depression ever since then, but because I didn't really know what it was or how to deal with it, I just kind of struggled along on my own. When I was diagnosed with lupus, things didn't really come to a head until 2014. That year my boyfriend's mother died. She was a lot like me. She was artsy, into jewellery making and all sorts of crafty things. She was the reason I learned how to crochet. She also had an autoimmune disease, fibromyalgia, which is different from lupus, but it's still in the same vein, and she died out of the blue before she even turned 50. And I began to think, is that going to be me? I'm just going to be in pain and feel like rubbish for the rest of my life, and then I'll just up and die really young? What's the point? I was struggling with my joints a lot of the time as well, leaving me in near constant pain. I began to self-harm again, a lot worse than what I'd been doing when I was younger. I just wanted a pain that I could control, that was mine. Self-harm has always been about control for me. In February of the next year, I turned 21. Everyone had built this up as a huge milestone in my life, as a really important event. It came and went without much fanfare. At this point, I was already thinking that I wasn't important, that nothing in my life would be important or mean anything to anyone but me. In March, I wrote a note to my brothers, telling them that I was sorry, that I couldn't live my life like this anymore. I didn't want to be like this for the rest of my life. I was tired of being sick, of being in pain. I was convinced that I would slip quietly out of everyone's lives and that people would quickly forget about me and move on. I wouldn't be a burden anymore. I wouldn't be useless anymore. I picked up a knife and fully intended to take my life. Then a reminder popped up on my phone. I had a doctor's appointment in an hour. I put down the knife, I walked to the doctor's, insisted that I see her early, and explained to her what had happened. I was quickly put on medication for anxiety and depression, and painkillers to help deal with my chronic pain issues. I was seen by the emergency mental health services that night and arranged to see a therapist. My boyfriend was, and still is, fantastic. He came and picked me up from the doctor's that day and just hugged me and said, "If you ever feel like that again, pick up the phone and talk to me, okay? Just talk to me." I'd never felt able to talk to anyone about how I'd felt. I'd always felt alone and like I didn't want to burden anyone else with my problems. And here was someone telling me to just talk to them. There was no judgment, nothing. I am so ridiculously lucky. I felt so selfish at the time, putting him through this while he was still grieving for his mum, but he quickly shut that down. It wasn't a quick fix, and it got worse before it got better. It took a long time for me to feel better in myself. Years even. And these days, I still struggle. Some days are better than others. In fact, I have a lot more good days now than I do bad days. I still live with my amazing boyfriend, and we've adopted this crazy, dumb, adorable flufferbutt together. We're planning for our future, and I'm so glad I didn't cut it short that day in 2015. It's important to remember that depression isn't anyone's fault. You can't control how you feel when you're going through a depressive episode. I don't think depression should be something we don't talk about, and it's not something to be ashamed of. If you experience depression, you're not alone. Ask for help, because however you feel, it can get better, and it does. You are not useless. You are not worthless. Your brain is lying to you. Reach out to someone, talk about it, get the help you deserve to have. I'm a little loopy, and I hope this video has helped. Thank you for watching.